Okay, everybody, what is going on? Good afternoon. Hope you guys are doing well today. And I know I've made a couple videos recently talking about the 2027 draft. I know I've been doing a little bit of draft content lately, which is not for everybody at this time of the year, right? Like if you are an NFL fan that just mostly likes to watch the games and isn't a big draft guy, you're really not going to be a draft guy right now when we haven't even had the college season play out. But I want to talk a little bit more about some stuff that might be in play for the Seahawks in the 2027 draft. I want to talk about another scenario here. And for those of you who are intrigued by this kind of stuff, then great. And if not, then we'll be talking about other football stuff later. By the way, if the Witherspoon extension has already happened, I probably am just not in a position to make the video about it yet, so it'll come. But frankly, I hope it doesn't happen when I'm away from the computer and I can't talk about it. This video is sponsored by Prize Picks. So if the Witherspoon extension happened and you're wondering why I'm making a video about something like this, it's because this was preloaded. So I'll make a video about it as soon as I can, if it happened. I'm talking to you guys from the past, I guess. But I want to talk a little bit more about this draft stuff because I made a couple videos about draft stuff yesterday. And I want to follow up here with another idea here for the way this draft can go because I'm looking at this. And this is Tankathon. And first of all, let me just say, as of right now, I don't know if this is correct. I don't know if we actually have two comp picks in the third round here. I think we only have one, and this is a mistake. But at the same time, the mock draft database made the same mistake if it is a mistake, which leads me to believe it might be correct, because if that's the case, then two different websites that I trust and use a lot made the same mistake. So we'll see. We don't have to worry about it too much right now anyway. I mean, technically, we don't have any comp picks right now because they don't get finalized until much later. Regardless, though, either we have it or we don't. It doesn't really affect this conversation that much. So let's talk about doing something kind of bold here. Let's talk about going a little bit crazy with this upcoming draft class because this Seahawks team, obviously, they're in a really good position right now. Obviously, they're coming off a Super Bowl title. They're returning almost all of their players from that Super Bowl title. They have a relatively young roster. They've got a lot of good blue chip players that are still getting better. This is a pretty good spot to be in as far as NFL rosters go. But here's the thing that I'm wondering about right now as I think about this upcoming draft class and I think about this roster. For one, like I've said before, and I know this sounds weird, the Seahawks might have too many picks right now given their situation. And yes, that is a thing. You can have too many picks. If your roster is really solid and there aren't that many roster spots open to new players, then a lot of your draft picks are basically just going to bounce off a steel wall, right? Like if you spend up fifth round picks, like we got 4 fifth-round picks next year right now. What if you draft a bunch of players who they might be good players, but they don't really have a chance of making the team because of the roster you have set up? Then you're just kind of wasting the picks, right? You're spending picks on camp bodies, and the player might not be bad. The player will probably make a different team after you let him go, but he's not going to do anything for you. Even in a draft like this, which is going to be a good draft, I think that is something to think about here. So I proposed a couple of different ideas of how to alleviate that issue, but let's be a little bit more bold here for a minute. All right, guys, let's take a quick break here to talk a little bit about Prize Picks, currently the #1 sports pick app in America. The app is very easy to use. Check it out to my left here. You can do player picks, where you just pick more or less on a few player stats and lock in your lineup. Or you can pick teams, where you pick winners, spread, or total on any game or fight. The app is available in most states, including California, Texas, and Florida. Right now, they have a great offer. You can play your first $5 lineup and get $150 in lineups if you win. All you have to do is use code HMA when you sign up. It's a brand new offer. Best time possible to get on the app. So get on over there and get to winning that first lineup. So remember, Prize Picks, code HMA. Download the app today and remember to always gamble responsibly. I'm thinking about the 2010 Atlanta Falcons here. And the 2010 Atlanta Falcons were a great team. They went 13-3. They won their division. They were the number one seed in the NFC. They had a top 5 offense and a top 5 defense. Everything was great for the 2010 Atlanta Falcons until the playoffs happened and they got completely blown out by the Green Bay Packers on the road to the Packers winning the Super Bowl a few weeks later. But it was a rough ending for what had been otherwise a really special team this year. They had one of the best rosters in football, and things broke down at the end. Tragic for them. But what did the Falcons do after this season? They could have just said, oh, we're really close. We don't need to really do anything. Let's just run it back. Let's just bring back the same guys. Let's just keep things the same. And we'll go 13-3 again because we went 13-3 once. Why wouldn't we do it again? No, they didn't do that. They did something that almost never happens in the NFL. They, as one of the best teams in the league, a team that possessed a very low first round draft pick, decided to trade up to the top of the first round in the 2011 draft because they felt like one more superstar was what they needed. They needed that one extra stud that could both immediately and eventually push the team to the next level. And what they did is from number 27 overall, which was their native pick, they were at 27. They swung all the way up to the 6th overall pick from the Browns. So they jumped up 21 spots to almost the top 5 of that draft. You do not see that happen very often. Now, what did they give up in order to make that happen? They gave up their first round pick, the 27 pick, a second round pick, a fourth round pick, and the following year's first round and fourth round pick. So they gave up 5 picks to get this 6th overall pick. So it was a significant haul. They gave up quite a bit to make it happen. It was expensive, but the team believed that it was the right thing to do. And was it? I mean, it's Julio Jones. That's who they got at number 6. I mean, the 2011 Falcons definitely took a step back. It was a little bit of a disappointment, but they remained a competitive team for much of the next several years, and they went to an NFC title game. They went to a Super Bowl some years later. But Julio Jones, I mean, look, going to be a Hall of Famer, right? The dude's going to go to the Hall of Fame. The dude, one of the best receivers of his era, had some monstrous seasons in this league. Almost 14,000 receiving yards in his career. He was great from the moment he started. He was great as a rookie, great as a second-year player. His prime, Pro Bowls and All Pros, made the Hall of Fame All 2010s team. So I'd say, yeah, that was the right thing to do. I think the Falcons would probably do that one all over again if they could. And again, I want to stress, this is not something you see teams do very often. You see teams trade up. But usually what will happen is that a team around the middle of the first round will trade up to the top of the draft for a quarterback. And they'll give up a bunch of stuff like Jared Goff, Carson Wentz, I think Robert Griffin III. That's what you'll see. You don't see teams make a trade from the bottom to the top to get a non-QB. But the Falcons did it, and I'd say it worked out. Would have been nice to get a Super Bowl out of it, but Julio Jones is one of the greatest players in Atlanta Falcons franchise history. He helped them go to a Super Bowl. He kept them as a playoff team for much of his career, and I imagine almost any Falcons fan and Thomas Dimitriov, who made the initial trade, would do it all over again. So I'm thinking about this and I'm wondering, is this something to replicate? Should the Seahawks look at this and whatever happens this season, right? Because this works no matter what. You could win the Super Bowl again. You could come up a little bit short. You could fall on your face and have not a very good season. It doesn't really matter that much because you're not responding to the season you just had. You're trying to do the right thing for your team. And is it the right thing to do for your team to give up a bundle of draft picks to move up high into this draft, maybe top 10 or top 5, to acquire a true blue chipper instead of just picking around the bottom of the rounds? And I suspect the answer may be yes. So let's look at this. The Falcons go from 27 to 6, and they give up another first rounder, a second rounder, and 2 fourth rounders. Let's assume that the math more or less holds, and you're able to make, at the very least, an equivalent deal this time around. But let's say you're trading up a little bit more, like maybe you're at 28, like this says. Maybe you're at 30. Maybe you're even at 32. So you're going to have to move up a little bit more, and maybe you're trying to get up to like 5 or 6, kind of like Atlanta did. So you're giving up a little bit more. You're giving up the 28, I think, for sure. Well, you're definitely giving up the 28 or 30 or 30. You're giving up the first round pick. You're giving up the second round pick. And I think you are giving up one of your third round picks. And then I think you are giving up a first and a third in 2028. So I think that's probably roughly the package. And if you have to throw in some fifth round picks to sweeten it, no problems. I will gladly give up all of these fifth round picks if it enables me to move up that tiny bit more to get a top 8 pick in the upcoming draft, if that is what I covet. I don't know if these fifth round picks have much of a chance of doing anything for me at all. So first rounder, second rounder, a third rounder, and then let's say the first and third the next year. That would be roughly equivalent, even if you're picking a little bit later than Atlanta was. And then you do that, and now you have the opportunity to get a blue chip player in the draft. Now, who that blue chip player is, we can't be for sure on until we actually see this college football season play out, right? Right now, you would assume it's either Dylan Stewart or Colin Simmons. Those are the top 2 edge rushers, according to most people right now, Stewart and Simmons. Whoever you like better, going to depend on personal taste, but they're both really, really strong prospects this year. I don't think anybody else makes sense. I don't think you would want to go get a blue chip receiver. I don't think you're going to want a top quarterback. That doesn't make a lot of sense unless you're really looking to move on from Darnold, I guess. That would be a little bit interesting, but then you're probably looking at trading up to number 1, and, good luck with that. That's a lot harder. Cornerback, I don't think so. Tackle, no. Like it's going to be for one of the edge rushers in all likelihood, whoever emerges as the top edge rusher that you can get at pick 5 or pick 6. But again, we're not really talking about what this team does this upcoming season because it's not really relevant. The question is, does that serve the team better? Knowing that you're probably losing DeMarcus Lawrence, Uchenna Nwosu, and Dante Fowler this offseason. For one reason or another, all 3 of those guys are probably gone. And then you've got Derek Hall, who is good, but he's not a star. And you're trying to figure out a way to get another blue chipper here because you've got young blue chippers in the building, but you're going to start to lose stuff here and there, right? Leonard Williams, I think he'll be here for a couple more years, but his time as a superstar could come to an end at some point, and he's not going to be around that much longer, I don't think. Julian Love, I know he's not a superstar, but he's a very good player. Like, that's a guy who I think could be moving on soon here. I don't know if that's a guy we can afford to keep or if we'll even necessarily want to keep him. You've got some other tough decisions that are going to have to be made at some point. You might lose a guy like Ernest Jones at some point. You might not be able to afford him as good as he is because you got to think about all these other things you got to pay. All these other things you have to account for, I guess would be a better way to put it. And you're trying to figure out a way to get another superstar, a guy with superstar potential. You're probably not going to do it in free agency. Too expensive, and those guys usually don't hit free agency. You're probably not going to be able to do it by trade. Maybe trade, but generally speaking, it seems like this team has taken some swings in that arena lately and just haven't been able to make it work. Guys like Max Crosby, obviously kind of the head of the list here, but there have been some other rumors as well that we may or may not have been involved in that we just have not been able to punch in. Myles Garrett could have been one of them. Maybe we were in on Myles Garrett. We don't know. And You're not going to find those guys very often at the bottom end of rounds in the draft. You can, it's hard. So maybe this is just the way to go. If you love Colin Simmons or you love Dylan Stewart, then I have to believe that's going to do more for you than getting one of the a granted appealing, I guess would be the right word, but not necessarily superstar potential of edge rushers at the bottom of the first, guys like the Oregon guy, Ugalele, or the guy who I gave us yesterday, Quincy Rhodes. These are good players. These are fun players. I like them, but far more unknown going on there. So I look at what the Falcons did in 2011, where they looked at their very good team and they could have just said, let's just play it cool, roll it forward, see what happens, and went, no, we are giving up a bunch of draft capital and we are going to get a guy we think is going to be a superstar. And they were right. And I mean, would the Falcons over the next decade have been anywhere near as good if they didn't make that Julio Jones trade? You wouldn't think so, right? You wouldn't think so. I mean, there were some moments where he was the best receiver in football along with Antonio Brown. And keep in mind, you're giving up those picks in 2028 as well. The 2028 draft will probably not be as good. The 2028 draft is probably not going to be that great because this draft is supposed to be the strong one, and you would expect some kind of a wave where it goes up and down. So that's a way to trim down on the picks that you have this year. You would still have at least one third-round pick, by the way, maybe two, but probably just the one. And you'd still have stuff in day 3 that you could use. You still have your 4th, your 6th, your 7th in a good draft where you can get decent players or at least interesting players, even though you're picking that late. This is not going to be like this year where day 3 was really tough. So that is what I'm thinking about right now. And as I think about it, as I look at this draft, which is going to be a really good draft, and you can get good players later if you need to, but if you can go get a guy who can be a top 3 edge rusher in a couple years, if you can get somebody that can be a Will Anderson type or a Micah Parsons type, that level of player, and all you have to give up is a bunch of draft picks, like I said, a similar package to what Atlanta gave up here, I think that's the right move to make. All right, I'm going to go and get on out of here. Let me know what you guys think. That might be the big, bold move this team needs to make. They keep trying to make the big, bold move. It's not working out. They can't get Crosby, can't get Garrett. Maybe this is the big, bold move. All right, let me know what you think. See you guys later. Go Hawks.